Good evening and welcome to Press Pass. My name is Masai. This is what's our focus tonight.
You want a copy of the contract? My friend, I'll get it to you tomorrow.
What do we know about the standard gauge railway project contract over 2 weeks after the president promised to share it? You will know.
Media yubulogo hawa watu kabisa. Hatutaki kusikia mambo ya siasa saa hii.
Ukisema mnaka blackout tutakuwa tunajua mambo mengine aje kwa media. Sasa tunataka tujue mambo yao, wanafanya nini, wanafanya mambo mazuri ama wanafanya mambo mabaya.
Should the mainstream media put a lid on the political rhetoric and 2022 succession politics at this point? We get your views. And joining me for the discussion tonight is a gentleman who hasn't been a stranger on this panel. And that is Victor Bwire right next to me. He is now been promoted, I believe, is the word, to be the head of development and strategy at the Media Council of Kenya. Thank you for joining us, sir, and Happy New Year to you. And next to him, we have my colleague here at the Nation Media Group. He is a business reporter. You see his reports very much on the various platforms that we have. And just the other day, yesterday, the Sunday Nation leading story on the SGR project, concerns over the debt that we have against the China government, and that is Edwin Okoth. Next to him is also a Business Daily columnist and economist, that is Tony Watima, and also a regular contributor on our show on various aspects. Now, Victor, I'd just like to draw your attention to a story that we had this evening, and that is on Prophet Owor's foot soldiers who have been responding to a story that we did yesterday. And this was a response. His mantra, I should start with, of course, his mantra perhaps is see no evil, hear no evil, especially when it touches on matters of the ministry of repentance and holiness. Dr. David Owor, the self-proclaimed mightiest prophet of the Lord, thrives in controversy and questionable miracles, has unleashed his social media warriors on NTV after we aired a story on the disappearance of a 16-year-old girl who was allegedly taken by one of his congregants. Immediately, the story ran last night. All manner of attacks followed, and in a war waged on social media by those who subscribe to Owor's ministry. NTV went through some of them and reports that tolerance seems to be an alien word to the repentance champion who also preaches about forgiveness. Let's get that story if you missed it at 9.
A family engulfed in worry.
Minutes after the story of Hadija Mohammed, who had been missing, was aired, social media played host to a barrage of attacks directed at NTV and specifically at the reporter on the story, Charity Mwangi. She was castigated and NTV labeled fake news outlet. Most hit was on Twitter, where hashtag NTV fake news again was quickly coined, and a number of individuals who in the past have also been involved in such a campaign utilized the opportunity to throw jabs at NTV and the reporter. The concern, which ultimately got lost in the attacks, was that the girl, who we had reported as having denounced Islam and converted to Christianity, was not missing. According to Owor's followers, she was rescued by one of them after she was physically assaulted by a member of her family. The keyboard mercenaries also indicated that the girl was in school. The manner in which they went after NTV has exposed Owor and his congregants at large as intolerant.
Before we go on radio,
this is his fashion and style of dealing with those who dare see evil in anything associated with his ministry. He is ruthless and does not take criticism kindly. Neither does he allow anyone to poke holes at his ministry. This recent case is not the only one. Other media outlets that have dared report tales and turns that are not favorable to the preacher or his ministry have been treated to the harshness and attacks that are pushed online and offline, seeking to paint them as falsehood and void of credibility. In one of the videos posted online, Owor is captured attempting to incline a member of his congregation to accept that there are two of him on the pulpit. He repeatedly implores the worshipper to recognize him as such.
There are two. There are two. Yes, there are two. And you address them appropriately. Actually, one, if you look around, one is taller than the other. Yes, there are two. Be very careful.
Owor's intolerance is also exhibited in the number of lawsuits he has filed against individuals. He never shies away from taking his detractors to court and prosecuting them to the end. He is also never afraid of severing ties with individuals and organizations that stand on his way.
Let me go. Yes. The President of the Republic of Kenya has sent me a helicopter.
The once humble street preacher who wore oversized clothes and shaved his chin clean now dons white attire at public functions he attends. Once in a while, he shops for his clothes along Kimathi Street and often brings business to a standstill anytime his fleet of luxury vehicles come to town.
And that is perhaps, if you are online a lot, you've seen the trending, hashtag NTV fake news again. And I'd like to put this to Victor Bwira, because he works for the Media Council of Kenya. They get complaints on what the media is doing. And just straight on to this one, have you gotten straight complaint from the Prophet's ministry or his people as regards how we have done this particular story?
Thank you, Mark. No, not yet officially. I remember a week ago, they wrote a letter to Citizen and copied Media Council in, and we asked them to file official complaint against if they are aggrieved by the story, because there are laid out procedures for complaining if media has gone against the code of ethics.
Right.
So far we have not, but this approach they are using of harassing or trolling NTV,
and even Standard, and Royal Media.
And Royal Media
Yes.
will not help, because it's unfortunate that the more this is happening, the more, because these media houses are not creating these stories. They are not artificial. They are things that are happening.
Right.
Some of these people who claim to have had those experiences with that pastor are coming and giving these stories to the media themselves, having noticed that some of them are purely artificial stories that do not stand. So,
Okay.
so that approach of harassing, of running fake, hashtags against media houses won't last. And we just encourage them, if they feel so aggrieved, that they bring formal complaint against the media houses, and procedures and action will be taken appropriately.
The initial response, of course, and complaints were on the story that was done, I think, end of the year and beginning of this year, end of last year, beginning this year, over the security around the Prophet Owor.
Yes.
And with that treatment of that story, were you content that justice was done?
The story had issues. Obviously, I would not want to but remember, a clip was used of a different function that then was used to accompany a different story.
Okay.
So that's the issue of manipulation of photos, which is purely against the code of ethics.
All right.
Because that was a clip that had happened some years back, but it was utilized to present a story as if it was current.
Okay.
And we have encouraged them to bring a formal complaint against that media house, and appropriate action, having listened to both the sides, will be taken.
But media houses can continue with the stories as long as we have balance.
As it is now, it's just street noise, which is not allowed, which is not professional. And for a church or a person of his caliber, he would behave better than what he's doing currently.
Okay. Edwin and Tony, I'll save you from that, because this is the regulator speaking. I just wanted to see if he had any complaints, especially now that NTV was on the receiving end of a lot of people online complaining about the coverage. But we will pursue this and get every angle that is there to be gotten, and to have balance to it. Now, something else now all of us can respond to, but first let's listen to what people said. The first 2 weeks, gentlemen, as we all know, you work in a newsroom, you follow the news a lot, has been dominated, at least the headlines, with stories on political rhetoric and 2022 succession politics. So we went out and asked if people think there should be a blackout for those who, spread what seemed to be divisive politics, and also this discussion on 2022 politics, succession politics. Let's listen in.
Support the media, airing the politics the way it is going on. Because why is it so allowed? They are educating us to know where we are going to be in 2022.
Inafaa sana kwa sababu watu wengi hawawezi kuelewa mambo ya siasa bila media.
Na muangazie mambo ya ukweli ili kila mwananchi pia aweze kujua ni nini kinaendelea katika nchi yetu.
tuendelee kupashwa habari na wanahabari without fear or favor.
Msiwapatie blackout kwa sababu mambo mengine tutajua. Mkisema mnaweka blackout tutakuwa tunajua mambo mengine aje kwa media. Sasa tunataka tujue mambo yao, wanafanya nini, wanafanya mambo mazuri ama wanafanya mambo mabaya.
Lazima tena muongelee hii maneno ya 2022. Sasa msipoongelea maneno ya 2022, hii Kenya lazima iongozwe na siasa.
There is time for everything. Tusiwe tunaongea siasa tangu 2017 mpaka 2022.
Media itaendelea tu kupeperusha nini zao sababu hiyo ni kazi yao. Hiyo hakuna ubaya.
Let them continue airing. Citizens are continuing to assess the kind of temperament that we want as a leader come 2022.
Inafaa tuanze 2022, ikifika 2021 hapo tuanze kuongea maneno ya 2022, lakini saa hii tufanye kazi.
Media ni iwabloka watu wa mambo ya siasa ya 2022 mwanzo. Iwabloka kabisa. Wakaribishe wale watu wanafanya maendeleo, wanataka maendeleo. Right now they disrupt general progress of the nation by interrupting hard-working people willing to serve people.
Media ibuloko hawa watu kabisa. Hatutaki kusikia mambo ya siasa saa hii.
I'll start with Tony Watima. You're an economist. From what you followed, have you had it? Do you feel this, should be it in terms of all this political rhetoric?
Okay, I'll speak as an economist. We cannot black out politics because the basis of development starts with how we govern ourselves within our politics.
Right.
So, for example, the conversation right now is about the CRA allocation, Commission of Revenue Allocation to counties. So, the formula has been brought up, and politicians are giving comments. So, it's already a political process that leads to now development later.
Right.
So, when you talk about giving a blackout to politicians, I don't think that is the way to go, even if you're trying to say that we are sanitizing our politics. I think the level that we need to be is that media houses need to hold politicians accountable for the words they speak, even if they get the airtime. The fact of the matter is that people need to be held accountable for what they say.
All right. Edwin Okoth, even yesterday on the same Sunday Nation, there was an editorial about, enough of this 2022 succession politics. From where you stand, I mean, business reporter, so your interest is normally on business matters, but can you separate the two?
Very hard to separate the two, but I agree with Tony that we cannot black out politics because, as you hear, those are our viewers talking there, and the opinion is, they have divided opinion of whether we should black out or not. But that also tells you that the media is a mirror of the society. We only serve that society. So this is a product we are packaging for them. And the more they like it, the more we serve them. So yeah, it will continue. For me, I even feel like we should exhaust it early enough. So that by 2022, the tensions are down and it has peaked and we get into a softer election.
You think that's a strategy that would work, Victor? Or it will be kept alive till 2022?
And the people who limit to thinking that it's media that is talking about politics alone. It's just that they're also limited in what they monitor. Walk around Nairobi, go to Ambassador, go to next to City Hall, those groups of people, what are they talking about? It's politics. So media, like Edwin said, is a mirror. It's a reflection of what is happening, and then everybody is talking about it.
Yes.
Remember, this is a succession year. I mean, compare how the politics was covered with the Jubilee First government and right now.
Right.
So the stakes are high. This is President Uhuru's last term. So succession will be a major thing that we can't run away from. And media, being a mirror of the society, must keep a tab, because out of this, the media is also helping in terms of looking at the governance structure, the kind of leaders we are looking at that time. Most of the governors are going away. Remember, they have already served their 2 terms. New ones are moving from senators to governors. What were these kind of people in the Senate or MP that want to go? So this 2022 succession will be here with us. The people, whether people like it or not, it will continue making fodder for media.
All right. That's the message there from our panel, and we'll see what the days ahead have in store. But something else is taking the headlines, and you saw it on your Sunday Nation. This was actually the story. SGR pact with China, a risk to Kenyan sovereignty assets. If my director can take what I'm looking at, can mirror what I'm looking at here on the screen. And yes, this was a story that detailed the issues that are around this contract that many people are asking about and following after. This was a story that was done by Edwin Okoth, and you can get to see it, of course, from his platform, but we'll discuss it a bit more. Let's just rewind a few weeks back, a couple of weeks back, on the 28th of this month. Let me just look at what the president said when we're part of a roundtable. You don't have to reflect what we're looking at right now. And he promised, of course, as it was put to him at that point during the discussion, was Hussein Mohammed of Citizen TV. And he put it to him, the concerns about Kenyan assets being put up as collateral if Kenya does not pay back its debt.
My friend, don't even go there. You've seen the Chinese government themselves say that is nonsense. That doesn't exist. Yeah, I am telling you, it doesn't exist.
It's not
all right.
like
You want a copy of the contract? My friend, I'll get it to you tomorrow. And if you prove your point that it exists, that there is anywhere, yeah, then you will have a point.
Okay.
Tafadhali jameni, hii mambo ya porojo, jameni,
No,
nyinyi watu ya porojo.
I wanted clarification.
Eh?
Kenya wasiwe na wasiwasi. Hii ni porojo tu.
Porojo kabisa.
Okay.
Manake wameangalia mifano.
What exists is a contract between Kenya Railways and the Kenya Railways and Kenya Ports. Ya kwamba, yeah, watasafirisha mizigo, yeah, where possible, right, on the SGR. Okay.
So he was just trying to clarify there that no Kenyan assets are up for grabs in case Kenya is able to pay back its debt, SGR debt, and debt to China in effect. And this is something that we've been following up. Yes, we asked several times, that is the president directly at that roundtable, and subsequently after, not just myself, other media houses have been following up on this as to whether we can get a hold of that SGR contract. Let me start with Edwin Okoth, because this story that you did yesterday on Sunday Nation was very well put together and informed with facts. And you do cite some clauses of an agreement between Kenya and China. Is this the said contract that the president was promising to give?
I don't want to associate it that the president had promised to give. So don't mistake that he gave me the contract.
Yes. But I'm wondering, because he promised me and then he gives it to you.
Sometimes you realize tomorrow never comes because you were
Yes.
told you'll get it tomorrow.
Yes.
But that is the contract. As far as we are concerned, as far as I am concerned, and you know no one has come out to dispute it anyway. So it is the contract. And as you mentioned, the clause that we flagged out very fast was on the sovereignty, which was basically saying that Kenya has waived sovereignty on any asset with regard to that agreement. That basically says if there is any asset to be attached, you cannot claim sovereignty on it. Sovereignty means like Kenya has, as a sovereign country, can say, look, this asset is of strategic nature to us, to the extent that we have attached sovereignty to it. So you cannot commercially tie it to a loan.
Right.
We waived all that. And that was the crust of the story that we ran on Sunday.
Right. And you put it to CS Macharia, who actually in some instances, in terms of pursuing this promise, we were told by State House that the person now to contact is Transport CS Macharia over this. And I believe that's the same thing you've been told. That's the same thing my colleague Olive Burrows has been told. And he responded to some of the queries that you put to him in terms of the debt.
Yeah, well, on the sovereignty and I call them the high voltage clauses, which I shared with him. He did not respond directly to them. But if you look at the quote we gave him, he said like, basically was trying to emphasize that we are able to repay the loan, that the take or pay agreement with KPA is sufficient to repay the loan.
Okay.
So in a way he ducked it, but that is what he gave and he stuck to that.
Right.
We were meant to have an interview today, and of course,
Still
like
with
your tomorrow never
Ministry.
came,
Yes.
my tomorrow never came.
Okay. Watima, real quick before Victor comments on something he wrote on last week.
Yes.
With the concerns that are put out there, you also wrote something on the Business Daily, and this is about this particular debt concern not going away anytime soon, but you also put this to that leaked document from the Auditor General. First of all, the concerns that are out there, is this porojo, as the president puts it?
We cannot say porojo, as Edwin has said. This is the document that is out there. And we are yet to see somebody saying that this is a fact document and this is the original. So even if we say this is fake news, you have to verify the authenticity and give a document that is true. That's when we can have an informed conversation about what exactly is happening. But the problem is that we have people in government who just say that these are fake documents, these are fake news, but no one comes out and gives a proper direction that this is the authenticity, the right contract and all that. That is the problem that we have right now.
All right. And Bwire, in seeking out this information, there's an article you wrote last week on the Daily Nation, and you talked about the avenues that we should explore in getting such such information of public interest. What do you see at play right now?
Thank you. Mark Article 35 of the Kenya Constitution, and then we have the Freedom to Access to Information Act 2016 that was signed both by the President, and it gives guidance to how people can access public information. I work in a public institution, and the issue of proactive sharing of information is emphasized. In fact, you look at public communication, you look at the issue of public participation is purely information sharing, that you are giving people enough information to help them make decisions. Now, the Act puts the responsibility under the Ombudsman Office. That's the custodian. If, like, you have tried and Edwin has tried, I was talking to another colleague who is having a problem with the Minister of Foreign Affairs on the number of Kenyans who are abroad, how much they are bringing in. I've seen African Check. They have quite a number of information requests to NHIF, to quite a number. And part of it is that you need to table this information through the Ombudsman Office.
Yes.
Because what the Act says that once you have put to an institution directly and they are not responding or they are not in charge, then they need to transfer you to the relevant right office. Like now what they are taking you to State House, taking you to Minister of Transport, but copying the Ombudsman Office, because that by Act is the office that is supposed to enforce if a government institution has refused to share information. But even before reaching that process, which people ought to practice and see, to test, because some of these things they are testing and see. So let's, Edwin, push with the Ombudsman Office and see how far that approach would yield. But in the meantime, like you mentioned, it's purely a failure of individual officers in government.
Okay.
There's no official government policy to deny people information, but just individual. Like in the interview we had on 28th, once the president publicly declares that a document should be given, we don't expect the president himself to be looking for the document to give the journalist.
Yes.
It's the officers who need to facilitate this, and there are enough communication officers around the presidency, around the relevant ministries and institutions that ought to have taken the president's directive unless they have been misleading the president to that effect. Because if you look at the documents and have had a chance to interact with the documents that are coming from those institutions that are relevant, they speak something very positive, including what they might have briefed the president. But why they can't, and Edwin has tried with some of the communication departments of those relevant ministries, then I think we just need to ask individual officers why inefficiency. Because sometimes I have a number of speeches here and presentations from both KRA, from KPA, that talk about very positive things, how that thing is happening, how the properties are safe, how we're already making money, there's enough money in the escrow account. But when officially journalists ask for the same information, and these are speeches they give us every night, every evening when they are launching. So what difficulty do they have in giving journalists when they ask for such information?
Okay.
So that's something that we need to push, and that's something we are having a problem currently, that a lot of government communication has been externalized. We have too many media communication experts that work with the CSS at the expense of communication managers or officers that are inbuilt in the ministries who have more. So there's a lot of more information. I mean, a lot of information on individual ministry Twitter accounts more than institutional information. And sometimes you can follow information a CS has tweeted or an expert has tweeted, After 2 minutes, you pick the same tweet, you call a ministry and ask the same information. They will quickly go and delete the tweet and tell you, and they forget.
Yes.
So there's some mischievousness and some lack of just coordination and
Yes.
seriousness in how government is communicating.
All right, you've talked of the different portals that we should perhaps explore, and Edwin will share with us just after we take the break how he went about treating this story, because it didn't start yesterday. It wasn't just after the promise of the contract. This is something you've been working on or have been with for quite some time. And we'll share that and perhaps more information that Kenyans need to get about this contract and the concerns that should be put to rest or at least addressed in this conversation. Stay with Press Pass. Welcome back to Press Pass, and we're the last part of the program, and there's a lot to cover still as we're discussing with my panel on the break, so I'll go quick to one of the comments. Petero or Peter Bravo, you say, the vagueness and mystery around these Chinese contracts is a classic case of government living up to and being true to its name, Serikali, ama in brackets, Sirikali. Rights to information, openness, transparency, and accountability are all things that government should accord the citizenry, and I'm sure my panel agrees on this. Now, just as something that was also said during this particular roundtable conversation that brought this to the fore, the president also asserted that the debt being incurred in Kenya is solely for the development of the nation, and his administration will continue to borrow if indeed it is for development projects. This was part of it.
Problem with debt is if you use it to consume. All right? I am confident that Kenyan debt, which is why it is so solid, is for infrastructural development that will benefit not just our generation, but future generations. Right? You would have a point if you were saying we were incurring debt to consume. All right? Then you would have a very good point. Right? But the debt that we are incurring is not just for current generations, but for future generations, because those roads, that infrastructure will be there.
Tony Watima, as an economist, are you convinced by his explanation?
Not really, because it's very simple that so far since Jubilee government came into 2013 to today, they've accumulated around 3 trillion of debt. So let's talk about, you're saying that it's going to development, as the president says. What are the developments that we see? SGR alone, so far, till Naivasha, is around 550 billion. So you set that aside. What else can we account for the 3 trillion? I saw he talked about rural electrification as part of the debt, that as part of the projects that have gone to date.
Yes.
If you read recently in December or November, Business Daily published that Kenya Power encountered 3 billion loss because of rural electrification. So there are many things, if we talk about the debt and the audit itself, they don't make sense, because even some of them have ended up in government recurrent expenditure,
yes,
as he's trying to say that it went to development, because there is no way 3 trillion can be dispensed, and we can't see that 3 trillion in terms of development alone.
Okay. Edwin, in terms of this story and the alarm that is being raised, someone might say, but we haven't quite gotten to that point where we are completely unable to pay this debt. What other clauses have you seen in terms of the repayment that actually raised the red flags for you?
Yeah, first, I agree with you. We've not gotten to a point where we are not able to repay, but
yes,
you don't get there first. You first read the signs before.
Yes. And what signs have you
these
seen?
are the signs. Apart from this loan to build the railway, remember there was loan to supply the rolling stock,
yes,
the coaches and the engines. There are loans to build the dry ports, including the 14 billion Kisumu port and the Naivasha dry port as well. These loans, there's loan to even electrify the SGR later. Remember, Ketrak already applied for a license to electrify the SGR. Yes. That's another loan. It's a pile and a pile and a pile of loans. But that is not even the thing. We missed the deal at the point of negotiation where we didn't have a feasibility study. Because if we had a feasibility study, we will tell whether this makes business sense, that this loan will be able to repay, these operations will be able to repay the loan.
What deal are we in terms of repayment?
The deal we are in terms of repayment, I will point to you that we got a grace period, of course, for the principal.
Yes.
Against people confuse this. Interest don't have grace periods. Yes. We've been paying interest since 2014. Now, if we get money in advance, according to that contract,
yes,
to try and offset the loan, we are charged 1% of what we have to use. And that 1%, they made it minimum at 10 billion. So that means every time, say, our oil boom comes and we have something to resettle, to reduce the loan, we are charged 1%, and that 1% can only be 100 million.
But what stops us? We get lump sum somewhere and we pay them.
They have the authority to accept or deny. That's according to the loan. They can accept or refuse. And they've made it in a way that you reduce the loan in reverse. For example, if the repayment period is 15 years, whatever you pay is taking care of the end of the loan, the 15th year, that end. So interest elements for this period remain as lucrative as they were. But that's not even the bigger one. There are many shocks into this contract. Yes. Now, it compels Kenya to import goods and services from China. What that means is that's why we had cement coming all the way from China. We've cement companies in this country struggling when we've done the biggest project since independence, because they made it in the contract. Import services, import goods from China. So for me, those are the mistakes we did. I think the biggest picture now we should think is, so what do we do? We still have phase 2A and 2B to do, but how do we rectify these mistakes, yes, to not to fall into this trap again?
With all that's being raised so far, Victor, there was a lot of celebration when the SGR was being launched. Was it a bad thing on our part when we, were part of this SGR celebration? The biggest thing we've seen in infrastructure.
No, we were made and convinced that it was a good investment, okay, and we needed to be patriotic, that our government had invested and this big SGR was going to change. And surely, Mark, there are good things that have happened with SGR.
True.
And like I was mentioning to colleagues, I've read speeches from the MD Kenya Railway, I've read a speech by Macharia, I've read a speech from KPA. There are very positive things that are happening, yes, that we can talk about around these projects. But why we have not invested, for example, the ministry is responsible in investing in telling people what these positive things are happening, I don't know why. I mean, why there's the Dongo Kundu, there's the road from Mombasa to Bujumbura through Tanzania, there's quite some things. The freight has gone up. I mean, the issue of the Nairobi Inland Depot. I mean, there's quite a number of positive things that are happening. I mean, if you talk to them and even look, but why we are not packaging this information and sharing about this as we talk about the negatives? I mean, those challenges that Edwin are raising and these are genuine concerns. But if we are still in denial, what will we learn? What lessons will we learn? And the denial has now made us even to run away from even talking about the positive things that are happening around SGR and related. Right. That's my concern, and that's why I'm asking that colleagues in the public sector, the public information colleagues who are working around these institutions, they must come up with these positive things, engage media more.
Yes.
I mean, the media, Edwin wants to talk, he wants good stories. If you give them information, there's no problem. Yes. But if you run away, you leave him to speculate or work one-sided, then that's the challenge. But yes, if we have communication departments that are working, we need to engage.
Right.
I mean, and give them this information.
Yes. Let me point out some positives that they have missed. And I'm only discovering this after the storm now, and some people are volunteering to tell me, why haven't you highlighted this? I'm like, you've never told me. Taxation, when the railway meets the port at Mombasa, and all the goods that are coming in are now being transported through the railway line, it means the goods are all brought to the ICD in Nairobi, the internal container depot. Mm-hmm. Then these people cannot evade tax, because previously, they will just make loopholes from Mombasa and disappear to some place. Now you are a small trader, a big trader, you get your goods in Nairobi, you can't run away from paying tax. There's a lot of efficiency. Goods are being evacuated very fast from the port, and congestion is likely to reduce. And even export. SGR is a strategic asset. The moment we get to Kisumu and there is a port, exporting to Uganda will be so easy. That is if our local manufacturers take advantage and we don't just bring from China then take to Uganda.
Yes.
So those are very big positives that nobody wants to talk about because of either design or
perhaps
default.
have been outweighed by the the gloomy side of it. But Watima, as an economist, what positives do you see? Because someone might think you're just an anti-Jubilee
I'm not an anti, because my jack of trade entails that as an economist you do a cost-benefit analysis, and that's the biggest picture we do on public infrastructure projects. There is nothing good about this project because it started on a wrong footing.
Okay.
That's the reality. Even things that Edwin is saying, yes, you might look from the port that things are being evacuated easily. You go to ICD here, there is congestion already because, and I can tell you for a fact,
has just been moved.
Yes, has been moved. And I can tell you for a fact, when this thing was being initiated, people in the Ministry of Transport were told that the ICD does not have the capacity to hold those containers. You'll have to look for bigger space. But no one was listening. Now they even list places that they take those containers not close to the ICD. And this is a cost that goes to the person who is holding the container. That's the cost that they're bringing to people. You talk about CFS that are in Mombasa. There are CFS in Mombasa, but they're not working because most of the goods have been moved. But let me tell you one thing about the SGR that it's wrong itself. As Edwin mentioned, there was no feasibility study. So there is no way we can tell the operations of these things are right or wrong. The economics of it, we don't know if they are right or wrong. What government did is that the Chinese themselves, China Exim Bank brought a contractor who is a Chinese, who did a feasibility study, and government took the feasibility study of the Chinese, which is complete conflict of interest because this is an interested party in this thing. And it's the same person doing the contract itself. So you definitely, me and you can expect that it will be given a clean bill of health.
Yes.
Now, the worst part of it is that after that, in this contract itself, there is no risks that Chinese were getting into, which is a biggest thing about infrastructure project. Because when you design a project, many people try to take a stake. You take an equity of maybe 40% and say, the money that comes out of this, I will get money to pay myself out of this project. Chinese are not getting money out to pay out of themselves. Us themselves, it's a sovereign loan. We pay those loans itself. At the same time, the contract itself includes that the railway, this SGR itself, will be run by a Chinese company. It's not an open tender on who runs that SGR. It was given to a Chinese.
And he's mentioned the importation of.
We pay the Chinese. Yeah, we pay the Chinese around. Figures I got from somewhere is that we pay around 20 billion every year. That's around 1.6 billion. We are paying somebody, even if it doesn't work, even if you're doing minimum containers, you're doing everything minimum, you still have to pay about that.
Okay.
When you look at the bigger picture of this, and you do a cost of it itself, so far we've invested 550 billion till Naivasha. The benefits of it are minute according to the cost that we invested in this.
And okay, is Edwin, and you'll respond to this, Bonavictor, if Edwin is being now, walking into the side of conspiracy, now that he's quoted in one of his stories as well, follow-up stories, that the Auditor General has been very good at putting people to task and holding them accountable, but on this one there's been silence. And he's asking why there's been such a secrecy around this SGR project in terms of calling to account the government itself.
The Auditor General has tried, and he showed the frustrations also. the same, and that's part of why there's a lot of asking what is happening. Because if you remember, and one of Edwin's tweets, he said, who knows even now the audit around the railway. We are now gazing and just imagining. The auditor has shown, you remember the audit report that just came out on KPA. It was a very damning report. So those are some of the challenges that if on one hand you are telling us the escrow account is very comfortable, it has some money, we can start paying the loan ahead. But on one account, the same institutions that are the trustees of the same are getting this adverse audit reports, then I mean, harmonizing that thing also becomes difficult for people. Are we so sure that what we are talking about, even that money in the escrow account, is it there or is there stories or not? So that's why I was encouraging that now Edwin needs to do more and tell us, yes, this escrow account, how much money is this there? If we are possible that we can start paying the loans ahead, how early and how long will it take? You know, we need to start asking. I mean, and if we are getting difficulties with such, what about the oil production agreement? What are the other in the extractive industry, the golds and what? But what I'm also advising is that, you know, information management in an ICT sector is different. Government can no longer maintain and manage information the way it used to do some 30 years ago.
Right.
With the ICT, with the open governance system, people are sharing, because parts of this contract, you remember, part of this agreement were being treated as last year. Bits of it. I mean, this is not the whole thing. That tells you already that even people, as people go to photocopy those documents, they are taking photos and sending out. So information management, even us who are in those public, is very difficult.
Don't give it away as to how we got the document.
I'm just telling you. I mean, I was an investigative reporter for years, so I know. So what I'm saying is colleagues must also open up, and the government realizes, the earlier it realizes, and that's why we are coming out with laws like access to information, proactive information disclosure. Okay. That once you give out information in time, it eases the pressure on you. In fact, remember, part of the reason why the access to information laws took a lot of time to be enacted in some of our countries, they were sold by World Bank as anti-corruption laws. And it took, but remember, the benefits of sharing information outweigh just corruption. The need of transparency, accountability, allowing people to make informed decisions, confidence in government, trust, and all. So we must look at
and there's no space for conspiracies.
Yes, so we must open up and share. There are bigger benefits of sharing information than hiding.
Edwin, respond to this. It's not conspiracy, I'm sure, from your perspective. Why you felt the need to point out Auditor General's work on to this end in pursuing SGR contract, or the details around SGR?
Yeah. First, the term of the Auditor General, Edward Ouko, is coming to an end in August. So I thought he will step out of office owing us such a big debt of not giving us the audit report. But I also thought about what he has done before. I mean, he audited the IFMIS, the Integrated Finance Management System. That's where government money goes through. He audited that. He has audited the National Intelligence Service, NIS. He has audited the defense. He has audited all these county governments, and he has done well, to show us where the loopholes are. So I was curious to find out, so where is the SGR audit? And I sent questions to them as early as last week.
And the response?
No, there was no response. Well received, Edwin, that was the quote. They received the questions, and that's it. So that's another tomorrow that never came. So, but that was my concern.
And Parliament as well.
Yeah, before I forget, Mark, again, Parliament, there are many committees in Parliament who keep summoning all these CEOs all the time, asking for reports and progress reports on Kenya pipeline, power projects. They've never called the Auditor General to ask him about the biggest infrastructure project since independence. Before I forget, Mark, I also need to point out that Africa and China relations needs to be redefined, especially now that we are learning some of the things, some of the loopholes we might have fallen into. Because this is a regional project, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. Perhaps they would have gone as a group of 3 countries and made a better negotiation, looking at the scope,
Yes.
And say it's
and
so big,
for the region as well.
So let's do a better deal. But one of my sources gave me a very interesting quote. It's called James Shikwati. He told me that the Chinese water takes the shape of the bottle. So if the bottle is corrupt, the water goes into the shape. If the bottle is eyes closed, sign here, the water takes that shape. We must open our eyes now and negotiate better. Our GDP is growing. We are not so desperate down like in the 90s when we would beg for loans.
Yes.
We have a stronger ground to negotiate. So we need to open our eyes and make a better bottle for the Chinese water.
Because you see some desperation. If you look at some of those quotes and section of those agreements, you see some desperation. I mean, like, it was a life and death matter. I mean, we must get this money, we know, and we are like it's raising. You're wondering, if we are a better country, if we have better options, why would we be signing this contract like look like we are desperate. Like
right.
it's a life and death matter.
All right, and this is the last comments to all of you now. I'll give you an opportunity. Edwin, first of all, Tony, you've given us a very bleak picture of the SGR project.
Yes.
So from where you stand or sit, there is no way of changing the fortunes for Kenya.
Yes, because a white elephant will remain a white elephant. Because we built a railway parallel to another railway that is existing. You know, that's the question that no one is asking. Why did we build a railway when we have another railway? Why didn't we upgrade? What are the costs? Because for economists, any economist will tell you, we will start from the cost. Then what is the benefit? The benefit has to outweigh the cost. By the time we get to...
you start seeing the benefits now,
No. You start from the cost. And by the time we get to Kisumu, we will have around 1 trillion spent on SGR, 1 trillion Kenya money. If you put 1 trillion, not on a single project, but in various projects, you will get a whole lot of benefits than what we are receiving on that.
So what's your challenge to media in this aspect?
The challenge to media is that still continue pushing that we need to see the right contract itself. This is Edwin's contract. We need government.
Is it?
We need
well,
this.
You need to put it right.
I didn't sign any contract.
Yeah, he didn't sign any contract, but it's come from Edwin. We need a contract coming from government itself that is giving us a so it becomes a tradition that when a conversation comes up, I think government needs to step up and give a document. Even if somebody comes with a document, you bring an authentic document or you counter it with the right document. So I think that one will set a good precedent for everyone.
All right.
In government.
And you didn't comment on how we could tell if it will be, if the contract that's promised will be delivered, if we can tell that
you can tell with the flow of a contract and the writings of the contract and everything. Okay. So even if they say they plaque a page of the clauses that maybe Edwin has mentioned, you will tell from the flow of the contract that this thing is not flowing.
Okay. Yeah. To you, Edwin, why can't we now go with the approach? You've done a very good job so far, and it's not because of bias. We work for the same media house. But why wouldn't you then publish the contract that you have, as it is intact, and put it out there?
It's a 500 page, unless we have a newspaper one day where it's this volume. I can't do that. I mean, it's such
you could serialize
it's such
it.
a volume, yeah. It's such a volume, and some clauses really you don't need to have to mention because they are general. You know, we've seen so many contracts, and this time it was just important to pick what stands out, so that what's newsworthy. Like, hey guys, this is new. We've never seen this. Are you aware we went into this? So again, yeah, it's such a huge document. I don't even have it around here because it's so big.
Yeah, we don't want to know where you put it.
Yeah, but now
it needs to be safe.
I need to talk about debt and projects because before I forget, because people might think we are bashing the government for borrowing to build the SGR and then saying it's not bringing returns immediately. We agree. It doesn't have to bring returns immediately. Yes. In fact, governments don't have to borrow just for projects that bring returns like a business. We can borrow to buy MRI scan in an hospital. Kenyatta University borrow to build hostels. You can borrow some projects like the SGR or some roads. You can't say Thika Road is bringing how much per day, but the long drawn economic benefits take long.
Yes.
So we understand up to that point. The biggest picture, as he puts it, is how do we start? How do we get to the negotiation table? Because when we correct that, we will not run into these questions of waiving sovereignty on any asset and being compelled to buy goods from that country and services as well. That means labor. Like they're allowed to bring any number of employees they want. And for me, the pain as a journalist is when you lie to us that, hey, it's going to promote local manufacturers and local suppliers are going to benefit, and yet at the contract level you've signed that we are importing from China. So for me, let's get to the negotiation table with that ability, and let's bring options. Let's float options as well.
Yes.
If you tie yourself to one person, you are cooked by what they say.
And there's still more to the story that we can expect from you and the team?
Yes, this is going to be a long conversation. It's going to be because it's here to stay. I mean, we are still in phase 2B. We have we have 2A going on. There's 2B to be done. Then there's an SGR line that has been running for a year and a half. we don't know much. So there's still much to be, not necessarily by me,
yes.
but, you know.
It's not Edwin's contract.
Yeah,
it's not Thank you for that. And also, as someone asks, from your perspective as a watchdog, how do we go about, you know, disseminating this news? If, for instance, we get it tomorrow, that 500-page document, or if we have it, how do we now break it down for the Kenyan?
Thanks. The journalists have the public duty to continuously give, and for a long time, people have been talking about the death of investigative journalism, in-depth, long story reads, and Edwin and colleagues have shown that given the resources and the contracts, they can write as much as.
And it wasn't an easy decision to put it there.
I know they went through a lot consultation.
Calls were made, I'm
sure.
But
that also calls upon ourselves. I mean, even us. In one of the things, in fact, what we are trying to do is to help the relevant government agencies in having a meeting, a dialogue with journalists. Not a dialogue really, but sharing some of these things.
Yeah.
So that we continue to also see, as we look at the challenges, but we also see the positives like Edwin is raising, what else is working, much as we are stuck with other, because I know a few things are working. And how else do we package it? Because such large projects, once they are surrounded by negative energy all through, then they also lack public support. Okay. And we have seen where people go and cut rails because they don't think it belongs to them. They see no value in that thing. Yes. So we are looking at the amount of money that has been invested and like you're saying, the possible benefits that some of these projects might bring.
He hasn't seen benefits.
We need, it might not just be the SGR, but I'm sure, I mean, I've taken a ride in it for sometimes to Mombasa and back. But what we are saying that we need to think more, us as a media development institution, we need to talk to colleagues in the public sector, to have a dialogue with journalists and give them the information they need, to respect the laws that the country has signed. If journalists are questioning for information under the Access to Information Law, let's provide the information. Where we have limitations, let's also provide information to that effect. But this game of hide and seek doesn't help anybody. It just creates tension for nothing, which is not there. Because whichever way, some of these colleagues will get those documents. So it doesn't help, it will take time. So we need to learn to move away from Sirikali and start sharing, respect laws, share with information with journalists, and provide explanations. Some of these journalists are more patriotic than some of those people who are hiding that information. But we always want to present the fact that they are not patriotic. But that's not, if he was not patriotic, we wouldn't be going to that extent to try to get those things. So let's accept and say we love this country more than anybody else. Let's share information, provide. And people, I mean, understand. Look at the Kenyan incursion in Somalia, for example. When our soldiers were going initially at Somalia, the KDF, and the government through then the head of civil service called media and explained what is at stake as a country. And you can see it's one of the best covered. But when we start hiding with this big project, then we raise, because there are always people who will give this information to journalists.
Some people might challenge your perspective of the best covered in terms of the KDF involvement in Somalia, because there's been questions there.
Questions have been there, but in terms of public support, yes. I mean, questions are there. People have raised the issue of we need now to bring back our soldiers. Those things have been written. Yes. But the initial support and understanding the media showed KDF when they went initially to Somalia was very unexpected of any other public engagement.
All right, thank you very much, Victor Bwire from the Media Council of Kenya, the head of development and strategy, Edwin Okoth, the business reporter at Nation Media Group. You can expect more from him, whether it's on Daily Nation, whether it's on Sunday Nation, even here on TV as he comes to contribute. And Tony Watima, a regular contributor at NTV on our various programs, as well as Business Daily as a columnist. Thank you for watching. This story doesn't end here. And if anyone is watching from State House to any other government office, please get us the contract. We just need to get the truth to the Kenyans. Have a good night.